In this video, we're going to go ahead and show you how to hook up a HolidayCoro power supply to our DMX module. Now, this is going to be wired permanently in here. This does not assume we're using our Cat5 interconnection method. This is most likely used if you're just testing or playing around with the sample kit. Now, our power supply has 3 wires at one end, 3 wires for the 110 volt input, and then at the other end we have 12 volts output. Now, this power supply is good for 3.75 amps or 45 watts output at 12 volts DC. Now, to determine exactly how many lights that you can run on this particular power supply or for any power supply, see our website. We have a video that shows you how to determine that. Okay, now to do this you will need a DMX controller or lights. You could wire these directly to lights. You'll also need a power cord. In this case, I'm just taking a power cord off of a standard leftover product from the house that we were throwing out. And what I'm going to do is simply just take and first trim off the ends so that I have 2 bare wires. Now I'm just going to take this. This is the power supply in. What I'm going to do is trim off the ground. Now in this case, this cable does not have a ground connection, as is common with most items that are in Holiday displays. We just have a polarized plug. Now, what we're going to do is wire these 2 together. Now, before we start, what we're going to do is I'm going to put some shrink wrap tubing just over the wire so that we can heat shrink the entire connection for a little bit more safety. Then what I'm going to do is put some smaller heat shrink tubing over the 2 individual wires, protect them from each other. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my soldering iron at about 400 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to just simply tin these wires. That's just putting a little bit of solder on here, heating them up so that they'll stick together. And while these are pre-tinned when they come from the factory, we're just going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit more solder. Alright, now on the box there will be a list of each one of the wires and what they do. Now you'll notice it says the brown wire is the hot wire and that the blue wire is the neutral wire. Now, what you have is you have a plug and it has a larger, fatter plug or a restriction on it that makes it not fit in a smaller hole. And then you have a smaller blade. This larger one is your neutral. This, on the other side, the smaller plug end, is your hot. Now, what you'll notice is that often the neutral side will have a rib on it as opposed to the smooth side, which does not. Now, in ours, what we have here is that we have the brown wire is the hot wire. Now, that's going to be the smooth wire. Now, this is not super critical. You could actually wire it up backwards. There's some pros and cons to doing it correctly. So I'm going to do smooth wire to the brown, and then I've got my little tricky here. Get this. My neutral, which is the ribbed section of wire. Alright, now we've got them wired together. All I'm going to do is simply slide the heat shrink tubing over the wires. Okay. Give it a little shot here with the heater. It's just a heater available at Harbor Freight, for example, or any other kind of tool store. They are now put together, and I'm just going to then slide this over the entire thing, covering both sections of wire. This will just make for a neater connection, potentially provide a little more safety. And I'm going to heat that up, and you can see that makes a nice clean interface between the 2. Okay, so there we go. Now that's connection's done. We can now apply power to this and it would put out 12 volts here. Now, what we need to do now is wire this to our DMX controller. Now to do that, we have 2 additional connections on this. There's one with 3 wires, and by the way, they are also labeled here. And the one with the 2 wires, the red and the black, is where we're going to be hooking this up. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of heat shrink tubing. We're going to take a small amount here and Okay, so I'll then simply match up black to black, red to red, pretty easy. Black is negative, and the 12 volt positive is red. Okay, gave that a tug and it wasn't on there enough. Always a good idea to give it a little bit of a tug to make sure that it's really truly connected properly. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've soldered those two. Oh, and I've done one of the things that we've all done here if you've put a shrink wrap on. Forgot to put the shrink wrap on before you put it on. You start soldering. So we're going to slide that back on there. You don't want to short this out, even though this power supply does have short circuit protection. It's never a good idea to short circuit any device. Okay. Okay, so I'm then going to slide the shrink wrap tubing over the connection so that they're isolated. Give it a little bit of heat here. And that's now a good connection. All right, we've now completed. We can go ahead, plug this in, and we'll see that the lights will light up. Now this controller does have a built-in sequence. If it does not see a DMX signal, it will go through its built-in sequence, and you can see here it's just gradually going through each one of the colors, which is great for testing your LEDs. Now, in the next video, we're going to go ahead and talk about how to hook up the signal wires.